The first time Ethan Cross saw her, she was reading Octavia Butler like her life depended on it. It was a Tuesday, always Tuesday, and she arrived at exactly 2:47 p.m., the same canvas bag slung over her shoulder, the same cream-colored cardigan despite the late summer heat. Silver-white hair twisted into an immaculate bun. Those strange gold-tinted contacts that caught the library's fluorescent lights at odd angles. And the gloves, thin black leather that she never, ever removed. "Your mysterious woman is here," Marcus whispered, sliding a lukewarm coffee across Ethan's desk. 6 months, dude. 6 months of watching her read. Maybe actually talk to her this time. "I talked to her," Ethan said, not looking up from his computer screen where he was definitely not pulling up her library card for the dozenth time. "Lyra Solon. P.O. Box address. No phone number. Check out history that read like a literature professor's wet dream. Everything from Austen to Vonnegut, Morrison to Le Guin, with side trips into quantum physics and cultural anthropology. You recommended her a book once. That's not talking, that's doing your job. She asked for Le Guin. I gave her The Dispossessed. We had a conversation. A 5-word conversation. Quality over quantity, Marcus." Marcus snorted and wandered off to shelve returns, leaving Ethan alone with his coffee and his completely professional observation of the strange, beautiful woman who'd been haunting his library for half a year. Beautiful didn't quite capture it, honestly. Lyra was ethereal, like someone had distilled moonlight into human form and given it cheekbones that could cut glass. Her skin had this almost translucent quality, pale in a way that suggested she'd never seen the sun. Eastern European, maybe? Scandinavian? Some genetic lottery that had blessed her with features so delicate they didn't quite seem real. 8 years of working at the Asheville Public Library had taught Ethan to read people through their book choices. The teenagers who devoured dystopian fiction were looking for validation of their angst. The middle-aged men, who checked out nothing but military history, were usually veterans trying to process trauma. The elderly women who requested large print romances were fighting loneliness. But Lyra? She read like someone trying to memorize human civilization before it disappeared. No pattern, no preference, just pure, desperate consumption of every story humanity had ever told itself. Today she'd selected Parable of the Sower, Butler's brutal, beautiful novel about survival and faith in a collapsing world. Ethan watched as she settled into her usual chair by the window, the one with afternoon light that turned her silver hair into a halo. She opened to page 1, and her entire body language changed. Reading for most people was passive. Eyes moving, pages turning, a pleasant way to pass time. Lyra read like she was drowning and books were oxygen. Her golden eyes had to be contacts. Nobody's eyes were actually that color, tracked across lines with intense focus. Her 6-fingered hand, wait, what? Ethan blinked. Looked again. No, still 5 fingers. Of course, 5 fingers. The gloves probably just made it look weird from this angle. He really needed to sleep more. Or drink less coffee. Or stop obsessing over mysterious patrons. At 3:30, Lyra stood abruptly, abandoning Butler mid-chapter, something she never did, and moved to the window. Her posture had changed completely. Tense. Alert. Scanning the parking lot like she expected something. Ethan was beside her before he consciously decided to move. "Everything okay?" She spun, and for one heartbeat, her eyes met his with naked terror. Then it was gone. Smooth as silk, replaced by that polite smile. "Yes. Sorry. I thought I saw." She trailed off, and for the first time in 6 months, she actually looked at him. Really looked. "Thank you, Ethan." His name. She'd used his name. He'd worn his name tag every day for 8 years, and she'd never once acknowledged it. "Are you sure?" "You look. I need to go." She grabbed her bag, started toward the exit, then stopped. Turned back. Those impossible golden eyes locked onto his with sudden, fierce intensity. "Have you ever read Philip K. Dick? Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" Random question. Off topic. But Ethan's brain, trained by years of reader's advisory, kicked in automatically. "Yeah. The Voigtkampf test, right? Measuring empathy to determine humanity." "Why?" "The empathy test," she repeated, like he'd just answered the most important question in the world. "The idea that connection, compassion, feeling, that's what makes us human. Not intelligence. Not technology. Just caring about each other." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Do you believe that?" The question felt loaded. Important in ways Ethan couldn't parse. "Yeah. I think so. Empathy is probably the most fundamentally human thing we have. Why are you? I'm being recalled. The words dropped like stones in water. My people are coming for me. I broke protocol, and now they're going to erase everything I've learned. Everything I've felt. Her voice cracked, and Ethan realized with shock that she was terrified. Actually, genuinely terrified. Everything about you. The library suddenly felt too small, too quiet, the fluorescent lights too bright. I don't understand. Lyra pulled off her left glove. The world tilted sideways. 6 fingers. Long, elegant, perfectly formed, but 6 instead of 5. And her skin, that pale, translucent quality wasn't makeup or genetics or some rare condition. It was a subtle, unmistakable shade of blue, like winter sky just before sunrise. I'm not human, she whispered, and the words came out like a confession, like relief, like goodbye all at once. I'm a researcher from the Ariane Collective. I've been studying your species through your literature for 2 years. Observing, recording, never interfering. That was the protocol. She looked at him with desperate honesty. Until I interfered. Until I started coming here not for research, but because being near you made me feel things my people don't feel. Aren't supposed to feel. Ethan's brain had short-circuited somewhere around the 6th finger. Alien. This woman, this beautiful, strange Tuesday patron who read everything, was an alien. You're joking, he said weakly, because his mouth was on autopilot while his brain rebooted. This is some kind of elaborate prank. Marcus put you up to this. He's always saying I need to. I wish it were a joke. Humor is one of the most fascinating aspects of human culture. I've read 73 books on comedic theory, trying to understand why you find absurdity comforting. She glanced at the window again, and Ethan followed her gaze. 2 figures had just entered the parking lot. Too far away to see clearly, but something about the way they moved, too smooth, too purposeful, made Ethan's hindbrain scream danger. They'll be here in minutes, Lyra said quietly. They'll take me back to the ship. Erase my memories. Standard protocol for researchers who compromise their objectivity. I'll forget Earth entirely. Forget every book I've read. Every story. She met his eyes. I'll forget you. The library door opened. The 2 figures from the parking lot entered, and up close, Ethan could see what his mind had been trying to ignore from a distance. They looked human, close enough, but something was fundamentally wrong. Too symmetrical. Too perfect. Like someone had designed humans from a technical manual without quite understanding what made them real. They wore dark suits that looked expensive and wrong. Their skin had that same pale blue undertone as Lyra's, more pronounced. Golden eyes without the contacts. And when the male spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made Ethan's teeth ache. Lyra Tellarian. You are recalled. Gather your materials. Lyra's shoulders slumped. Her 6-fingered hand clenched around her glove. I understand. Wait. The word came out of Ethan's mouth before his brain approved it. You can't just take her. 3 pairs of golden eyes turned to him. The female agent looked at him the way someone might look at a particularly interesting insect. This does not concern you, human. Lyra has violated the non-interference directive. She will be reconditioned and reassigned to a species less emotionally compromising. You will forget this encounter. Will I? Fear was morphing into something else. Something hot and reckless that Ethan hadn't felt since the accident 10 years ago taught him that bravery just got people killed. You planning to erase my memory too? If necessary. Said so casually. So coldly. Like Ethan was just another problem to be solved. Lyra stepped between him and the agents, and Ethan realized she was protecting him. He's innocent. He didn't know what I was. Leave him alone. His knowledge is irrelevant, the male agent said, producing a device from inside his jacket, something smooth and metallic that hummed with energy Ethan could feel in his bones. Come, Lyra. Don't make this difficult. Ethan watched her face. Saw resignation. Acceptance. This woman who'd spent 2 years reading stories about rebellion and resistance and people who fought impossible odds, she was just going to surrender. Going to let them take her memories, erase who she'd become, make her forget. Something in Ethan's chest, the part that had been locked away since the accident, since his best friend's funeral, since he'd decided that caring about people just meant losing them, cracked open. No, he said. Everyone looked at him. No, he repeated louder now. His heart was hammering. His palms were sweating. But he'd read enough books to know what came next in a story like this. The hero makes a choice. The hero acts. Even when they're terrified. Especially when they're terrified. You're not taking her. Not without a fight. Lyra stared at him like he'd just sprouted wings. Ethan, you don't understand what you're. I understand that you love books. I understand that you've spent 2 years learning about humanity through stories. I understand that you're terrified right now, and he swallowed hard. I'm terrified too. I haven't left Asheville in 10 years. I have panic attacks in parking lots. But I'll be damned if I let them take you and erase everything you've learned. Everything you've become. The agents exchanged glances. The female spoke, her voice clinically curious, fascinating. The human has formed an attachment despite knowing the subject is non-human. This directly supports Lyra's research findings about empathy as a defining human characteristic. Irrelevant, the male replied. We have authorization to extract the researcher by any means necessary. Human attachment is not a legal impediment. Maybe not, Ethan said, his mind racing through every thriller and heist novel he'd ever shelved. But you said you can't interfere with human culture, right? Non-interference directive? So what happens if I make this very loud and very public? He pulled out his phone. One button, and I'm streaming this to Facebook. Aliens in the Asheville Public Library. Let's see how non-interfering you can be when CNN shows up. Bluff. Total bluff. But the agents hesitated. Lyra's hand, the bare, 6-fingered one, grabbed his. You're insane. Probably. You made me read too much science fiction. I didn't make you read anything. You recommended Ursula K. Le Guin. That's basically the same thing. He squeezed her hand. Cool skin. 6 fingers that fit perfectly between his 5. Run. Where? Anywhere. Away. He looked at the agents. You've got 3 seconds before this goes viral. 1. They ran. Ethan's apartment was exactly 4.7 miles from the library. He drove it like a madman, running red lights, taking corners too fast, while Lyra gripped the dashboard and explained the situation in quick, desperate bursts. They can track me. Biosignature scanner. Range is limited, but they'll triangulate eventually. How long? Hours. Maybe less if they call in more resources. Can they just beam you up or whatever? Ethan took a turn that made his tires scream. Not without creating a massive electromagnetic signature. Your military would notice. Their protocol forbids mass exposure events. She looked at him, golden eyes wide. Ethan, you can still turn back. Drop me somewhere. Forget this. You'll be safe. Can't. Why not? Because you're the first person in 10 years who made me want to be brave again, he thought. Because I've been hiding in that library since my best friend died, and you walked in and reminded me that stories only matter if you live them. Because you're my favorite patron, he said instead. I have professional obligations. She laughed, startled and genuine, and the sound was so unexpected that Ethan nearly drove into a mailbox. His apartment was a typical bachelor librarian situation. Books everywhere, minimal furniture. A cat named Hemingway who immediately abandoned his food bowl to investigate the strange-smelling visitor. We have maybe 30 minutes before they widen the search grid, Lyra said, watching the cat sniff her ankles with intense fascination. What's your plan? Working on it. Ethan was pulling camping gear from his closet, tent, sleeping bags, backpack that hadn't been used since college. You said there's a sanctuary. Where? The Haven. It's a hidden community in the Smoky Mountains. Aliens who chose Earth over their home worlds. Refugees, researchers who went native, a few criminals hiding from galactic law. She paused. It's roughly 70 miles from here, through wilderness, while being tracked by a species with superior technology and no concept of giving up. Great. Love a challenge. Ethan was stuffing supplies into the backpack with shaking hands. Sleeping bag. Camp stove. First aid kit. His hands were shaking so badly, he nearly dropped the water filter. We hike. Stay off roads, off grid. You said their scanners are limited range, right? Yes, but... Then we stay ahead of them. Move fast, rest little, reach this haven place before they catch us. He stood, shouldering the pack, and realized he was about to hike 70 miles through mountains he hadn't visited since before the accident. His leg, the one that had been broken in 3 places, the one that still ached when it rained, was already protesting. Lyra was watching him with an unreadable expression. You're serious about this? Dead serious. You could get hurt. Arrested. Killed if they decide you're a threat. Yeah. He managed a smile that felt more confident than he felt. But I'd regret not trying for the rest of my life. So, he held out his hand, 5 fingers, regular human boring hand. You coming? She stared at his hand. Then, slowly, deliberately, she pulled off her other glove. 6 fingers. Pale blue skin. She placed her hand in his. "I've read 4,000 love stories," she said quietly. "This is the part where the protagonist does something stupidly brave, and it works because narrative causality demands it. I always thought that was unrealistic. Maybe it's not about realism. Maybe it's about hope. Hope is a human concept. My people don't have a word for it. Then I'll teach you." He squeezed her hand. "Come on. We've got a mountain to climb." They left through his apartment's back entrance, loaded into his beat-up Honda Civic, and drove to the Blue Ridge Parkway trailhead, just as the sun was beginning its descent toward the western peaks. The parking lot was nearly empty. Late September meant fewer tourists, which was both good and terrifying. Ethan killed the engine. Took a breath. Another. His hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "Ethan?" Lyra's voice was soft. "Are you all right?" "I haven't hiked since the accident. 10 years. I told myself it was because I was busy or tired, or I just didn't like camping anymore. But the truth is I was scared." He finally looked at her. "I'm still scared. Of hiking. Of everything outside my routine. Outside the library. Outside the safe little life I built where nothing can hurt me, because I don't let anything matter." He laughed bitterly. "And now I'm about to hike 70 miles through wilderness while being hunted by aliens. My therapist would have a field day." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I'm scared too. My people don't feel fear the way humans do. We process danger intellectually, not emotionally. But ever since I started reading your literature, I've been feeling things I'm not supposed to feel. Fear. Joy. Loneliness." She looked down at her hands. "Love." Ethan's breath caught. "Love. I think so. I've read extensive research on the topic. Increased heart rate in proximity to specific individuals. Intrusive thoughts about said individual. Desire for physical contact and emotional intimacy." She met his eyes. "Willingness to abandon everything you know to stay with them. By human literature standards, I believe I'm in love with you." The moment stretched. Wind in the pines. Distant bird call. The whole world narrowed to this car, this woman, this impossible confession. "That's the most unromantic declaration of love I've ever heard," Ethan said. "I know. I'm sorry. I've been reading romance novels for research, but apparently intellectual understanding doesn't translate to." He kissed her. It was clumsy. Awkward. They were both leaning over the gear shift at uncomfortable angles, and her mouth was cooler than a human's, and the whole thing was objectively terrible by romance novel standards. It was also perfect. When they pulled apart, Lyra was smiling. "That was not what I expected." "Bad." "No. Good. Better than good." She touched her lips like she was memorizing the sensation. "My research indicated that kissing would be pleasant, but the actual experience is significantly more intense than—" "Lyra." "Yes. Less research talk. More kissing." "Ah. Yes. Optimal." She leaned in again. They kissed in the parking lot until the sun touched the mountains and the sky turned orange and gold, and then they shouldered their packs and started walking into the wilderness like heroes from the stories Lyra had spent 2 years reading. Behind them, in the empty parking lot, a small device under Ethan's car began to blink. The agents had found their vehicle. The hunt had truly begun. The Appalachian Trail at dusk was beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. They hiked hard for the first hour, putting distance between themselves and the trailhead. Ethan's legs started protesting around mile 2, a deep ache that radiated from the old break site. He ignored it. They didn't have the luxury of pain. Lyra moved through the forest like water, graceful despite the terrain. Whatever her species had evolved from, it had given her better balance and endurance than baseline human. She kept glancing back at Ethan with concern. "You're limping. Old injury." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Your gait is compensating, and you're going to hurt yourself worse if—" "Lyra." He stopped, breathing hard. "I know I'm slowing us down. But I can make it. Just give me a second." She studied him with those golden eyes, then nodded. "We'll rest. 5 minutes." They found a small clearing off the trail. Ethan collapsed onto a fallen log, massaging his leg. Lyra knelt beside him. "May I?" She gestured to his leg. "You know alien healing magic or something?" "Or something." She waited for his nod, then pressed her hands against his thigh, over his jeans, but he could feel the coolness of her touch even through the denim. Her fingers moved in deliberate patterns, finding pressure points he didn't know existed. The pain eased. Not gone, but manageable. How did you? My species specializes in cultural anthropology. Understanding biology is foundational. I've studied human anatomy extensively. She sat back. Though I admit, studying and treating are different. Does it help? Yeah, thanks. He flexed his leg experimentally. Better. Not great, but better. Tell me about your people. If we're doing this, running away together, living in an alien commune, I should probably know more than scary memory-erasing researchers. Lyra settled beside him on the log. Above, stars were beginning to emerge. The Ariani are curious. We're explorers. Researchers. We've been studying other species for millennia. Our entire culture is built around understanding the universe through observation. Sounds noble. It is. Usually. She picked at the bark of the log. But observation requires distance. Objectivity. We're not supposed to interfere with the species we study. Not supposed to form attachments. Emotions are considered a contamination of data. That's cold. That's science. Or what my people believe science requires. She looked at him. Then I came to Earth. Started reading your literature. And I realized your species has figured out something mine hasn't. What's that? That understanding something isn't the same as experiencing it. That the most important truths aren't objective, they're subjective. Personal. Emotional. She smiled sadly. I read Pride and Prejudice and couldn't understand why Elizabeth forgave Darcy. So I asked you. Remember? Ethan did. 6 months ago. She'd approached his desk with the book, asking about character motivation like it was quantum physics. You said love requires vulnerability, Lyra continued. That Darcy had to admit he was wrong. Elizabeth had to admit she'd judged too quickly. That's when I started to understand. That's when I started feeling. And your people would erase all that. They'd erase me, the person I've become. They'd restore the researcher who arrived 2 years ago, objective, detached, efficient. Her voice went quiet. I'd forget everything that makes life worth living. Ethan took her hand, 6 fingers lacing with 5. We won't let that happen. You say that like you can stop them. They have technology you can't imagine. Ships that can cross galaxies. Weapons that could level cities. Yeah, but I have something they don't. What's that? Spite. And a library science degree. Never underestimate a librarian with a point to prove. She laughed, and the sound echoed through the forest. You're impossible. I prefer optimistically delusional. He stood, testing his leg. Bearable. Come on. We've got miles to cover. They hiked until midnight, finally making camp in a small ravine that Lyra declared reasonably concealed from aerial scans. Ethan set up the tent, while she arranged a perimeter of some kind, small devices from her bag that apparently would alert them to approaching biosignatures. You've been carrying alien tech this whole time? Ethan asked. Just basic research equipment. Recorder. Scanner. Emergency beacon that I've kept disabled. She arranged the last device. The beacon is the problem. If I activate it, my people will know exactly where I am. But if I don't, and we get injured or lost, we don't activate it. We manage on our own. That's very human of you. Refusing to ask for help even when you need it. Hey, you're the one who read all our books. You should have seen this coming. They settled into the tent, a tight fit for 2 people and 2 backpacks. Ethan had never been more aware of another person's presence. Lyra's coolness in the confined space. Her breathing. The way she moved with careful precision to avoid accidentally touching him. You can relax, he said. I don't bite. I know. This is the closest I've been to anyone in 2 years. My people don't share physical space the way humans do. Personal space thing? More like we don't see the point. Physical proximity doesn't enhance intellectual exchange. She was quiet for a moment. But I'm learning that's wrong. Being close to you, it does something my research never captured. Makes me feel safe. Ethan shifted, and suddenly they were facing each other in the darkness. He could barely make out her features, just the faint glow of her eyes. I haven't felt safe in 10 years, he admitted. Not since the accident. Not since I learned that the world is random and cruel, and the people you love can disappear in an instant. What happened? He'd never told anyone the full story. Not his therapist. Not Marcus. Not his family. But here, in the dark, with an alien woman who'd learned to feel through stolen stories, he found himself talking. My best friend. Jake. We grew up together. Did everything together. After college, we were driving home from a concert. I was driving. Sober, careful, doing everything right. His voice cracked. Drunk driver ran a red light. T-boned us. Jake was killed instantly. I spent 3 months in the hospital learning to walk again. Lyra's cool hand found his in the darkness. 6 fingers wrapping around 5. The worst part wasn't the pain or the physical therapy. It was the guilt. I survived. He didn't. And I couldn't understand why the universe would make that choice. So I stopped making choices. Stopped taking risks. Built a life where nothing could hurt me because I didn't let anything matter. And then I walked into your library, Lyra said softly. And then you walked into my library and spent 6 months reminding me that stories only matter if you're willing to live them. That safety isn't the same as living. He squeezed her hand. So thank you. For that. For making me remember what it feels like to care about something. Even though caring got us hunted through mountains by an alien retrieval team? Especially because of that. This is the most alive I've felt in a decade. They lay in silence for a while, hands clasped, listening to the forest breathe around them. Ethan? Lyra's voice was barely audible. Yeah. I'm glad you're alive. I know you carry guilt about surviving when your friend didn't. But I'm glad. Selfishly, completely glad that you're here. Something in Ethan's chest, the part that had been frozen since the accident, cracked wider. Me too, he whispered. For the first time in 10 years, I'm glad I'm alive. He felt her shift closer. Then her lips found his in the darkness, cool and searching and real. They kissed until sleep pulled them under, still tangled together, refugees from their own separate worlds finding temporary sanctuary in each other. Outside, distant mechanical chimes echoed through the forest. The drones were getting closer. Dawn came too early and wrong. Ethan woke to Lyra's hand over his mouth and her voice, urgent in his ear. Don't move. Don't make a sound. His heart slammed into overdrive. He nodded, and she slowly removed her hand. Through the tent's thin fabric, he could hear it, a high-pitched whine like wind chimes made of razor blades. Mechanical. Wrong. Getting closer. Drones, Lyra breathed. 3 of them. Scanning the area. They lay frozen, barely breathing. The sound passed overhead, circled back, passed again. Ethan's leg was screaming from the awkward position, but he didn't dare move. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, the sound faded. Lyra exhaled slowly. They're widening the search pattern. We have maybe 30 minutes before they circle back. They broke camp in record time, moving with desperate efficiency. Ethan's leg was worse this morning, stiff, swollen, angry. He tried to hide it. Failed. You need to rest, Lyra said as they scrambled up a rocky slope. We need to move. Rest gets us caught. Getting injured gets us caught faster. I can handle, his leg gave out. He caught himself on a tree, breathing hard. I can handle it. Lyra's expression was torn between frustration and fear. Ethan, the drone sound returned. Closer. Much closer. Run, Ethan said. They ran. The forest became a blur of green and brown, branches whipping faces, roots trying to trip them. The drone sound grew louder, more insistent. Ethan's leg was pure agony now, each step sending lightning up his spine. Lyra grabbed his hand. This way! She pulled him off the trail, through thick underbrush that tore at their clothes. The laurel was dense enough to block sight, but the drones were using heat signatures, bioscans, technology against which hiding was futile. They burst out onto a rocky outcrop. Cliff face on one side, 50-foot drop on the other, drones closing from behind. Dead end. I can climb, Lyra said, eyeing the cliff. My species. I can't. Ethan's leg was shaking. Not this. Not with. 3 drones emerged from the trees. Sleek, silver, beautiful in a lethal way. They hovered in formation, scanning lights sweeping across Lyra and Ethan. A voice emanated from the central drone, the male agent from the library. Lyra, tell Arian. You cannot run indefinitely. Surrender now, and we will not harm the human. Liars, Lyra snarled, and Ethan had never heard such venom in her voice. You'll erase his memories whether I come or not. His memories are already contaminated. But we can be gentle. No pain. Just forgetting. He'll return to his library. His routine. His safe existence. A pause. Isn't that what you'd want for him? Safety. Ethan felt Lyra waver beside him. Don't, he said quietly. Don't you dare think about surrendering to give me my old life back. I don't want it. Not anymore. Ethan. I'd rather die free than live safe and empty. You taught me that. All those books about brave idiots who chose adventure over security. You made me understand them. He took her hand. So whatever happens, we face it together. The drones adjusted position, forming a tighter perimeter. This is your final warning, the voice said. Surrender or we employ more aggressive retrieval methods. Lyra looked at the cliff. At Ethan. At the drones. Her mind was racing. Ethan could see it in her eyes, that alien intelligence processing variables and probabilities. Can you swim? She asked. What? The ravine. Below. I can hear water. River or stream. Can you swim? Ah, yes, but. Then jump. Are you insane? We don't know how deep. We know staying here means capture. She squeezed his hand. Trust me. I've read extensively about human survival instincts. Sometimes the only way out is through. The drones were converging. Jumping off cliffs was not in my job description, Ethan muttered. Consider it a career change. Lyra smiled, fierce and terrified and alive. On three. On three. 1. The drones moved closer. 2. Ethan's heart was trying to escape his chest. 3. They jumped, falling felt like dying. Wind roaring, stomach lurching, the ground rushing up with fatal certainty. Then water. Freezing, shocking, consuming. Ethan plunged deep, the current immediately grabbing him. His legs screamed as he kicked, fighting toward light. His lungs burned. Which way was up? A hand, 6 fingers, impossibly strong, grabbed his shirt and hauled him surface-ward. They broke into air together, gasping. The river was fast, rocky, pulling them downstream away from the cliff and the drones and the agents. Ethan tried to swim, but his leg was useless. Lyra kept him afloat, moving with otter-like grace. Relax, she shouted over the water's roar. Let me navigate. You just breathe. Ethan had no choice. He clung to her, letting her guide them through rapids and around rocks. Water filled his mouth, his nose, his lungs. This was it. They'd escaped aliens only to drown in an Appalachian river. Lyra pulled them toward the bank. Somehow, impossibly, found a calm eddy and dragged them both onto muddy shore. They lay there, coughing water, shaking with cold and adrenaline. That was insane, Ethan gasped. That was survival. Lyra rolled over, checking him for injuries. Are you hurt? Everything hurts. But nothing's broken. He sat up, immediately shivering. Late September mountain water was one step above ice. We need to get warm, or hypothermia will finish what the fall started. They stumbled inland, looking for shelter. Ethan's leg was beyond pain now, just numb. His clothes were soaked, his pack lost in the river. All their gear gone. There, Lyra pointed. A hunting cabin. Old, half-collapsed, but 4 walls and a roof. They staggered inside. The cabin was one room, abandoned years ago. Broken windows, rotting floorboards, but better than exposure. Ethan's teeth were chattering so hard he could barely speak. See clothes off, Lyra said, already stripping off her soaked cardigan. Hypothermia risk is severe. I'm fine. You're turning blue. Off. Now. They stripped down to underwear, wrung out what they could, and huddled together in the driest corner. Lyra's body heat, cooler than human normal but still warmth, was the only thing between Ethan and shock. We lost everything, he said through chattering teeth. Pack. Tent. Food. We're screwed. We're alive. That's not screwed. She wrapped her arms around him, sharing what warmth she had. The river carried us at least 2 miles. The agents will search the jump site first. We bought time. How much time? Hours. Maybe half a day if we're lucky. And then, we keep moving. Find the haven before they find us. Ethan laughed, slightly hysterical. We're half-naked, injured, lost in the mountains, being hunted by aliens, and you're still optimistic. I'm not optimistic. I'm desperate. She pulled him closer. I refuse to let them take my memories of you. Of this. Even the terrifying parts. Especially the terrifying parts. They sat in silence, shivering, holding each other. Outside, afternoon light filtered through broken windows. Birds sang, oblivious to the drama of hunted refugees. Tell me about the haven, Ethan said. What's it really like? I've never been. Only heard stories. They say it's a community of aliens who chose Earth over their homeworlds. Some fell in love with humans. Some just prefer your planet. There's supposedly a Torvin who learned to make pizza. A Mexeri engineer who repairs antique cars. Sounds like a sci-fi commune. It sounds like home. Her voice was soft. A place where being different isn't dangerous. Where loving across species isn't a protocol violation. She looked at him. Where we could just be. You really love Earth that much? Our violent, chaotic, completely irrational planet. I love your stories. I love that you create art from suffering, build communities from chaos, that you love fiercely despite knowing you'll lose everything eventually. She touched his face. I love that you, a man who hasn't left his town in 10 years, jumped off a cliff for me. I'm an idiot. You're brave. There's a difference. Brave people don't shake like leaves. Yes, they do. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. I've read enough human literature to know that. She smiled. It's being terrified and doing the thing anyway. Ethan kissed her. She tasted like river water and something otherworldly. Her lips were cool, her hands cold, and it was perfect. When they pulled apart, she was crying, clear tears that looked like liquid diamonds in the fading light. My people don't cry, she whispered. It's inefficient. Serves no evolutionary purpose. But I can't stop. Why can't I stop? Because you're not just Ariane anymore. You're also human. At least where it counts. He wiped her tears with his thumb. Welcome to the species. We're emotional disasters, but we tell great stories. She laughed through the tears. I don't regret it. Any of it. Even if they catch us, even if they erase me, I had this. I had you. That matters. We're not getting caught. Ethan. No. Listen. He gripped her shoulders. We've survived 2 days of being hunted. We jumped off a cliff. We're still here, still alive, still free. That counts for something. And we're going to keep surviving until we reach that commune, and then we're going to live the most boring, wonderful, peaceful lives imaginable. Deal? She searched his face. Then nodded. Deal. They held each other as the sun set and the temperature dropped. Tomorrow they'd have to move, find food, keep running. But tonight, in this broken cabin, they had warmth and hope and each other. It would have to be enough. Outside, distant but distinct, the mechanical chime of drones echoed through the valley. The agents were still hunting. They moved at dawn, using the early light to navigate without leaving obvious trails. Lyra had a sense of direction that seemed almost supernatural, some kind of internal compass her species possessed. Ethan's leg was a constant agony, but he'd learned to compartmentalize pain over the past 2 days. How much farther? He asked, stumbling over a route. 10 miles. Maybe 12. Lyra caught his arm, steadying him. There's a ridge ahead. Once we cross it, we'll be in Haven territory. They'll have sensors, defenses. We just need to reach them before. The drone sound. They'd been expecting it, but it still sent ice through Ethan's veins. 3 drones crested the hill behind them, moving fast. Run! Lyra grabbed his hand. They ran, crashing through underbrush. Ethan's leg gave out twice. Lyra hauled him up both times. The drones were gaining, their mechanical shriek growing louder. Then voices. Behind the drones. The agents themselves, on foot, finally close enough to track directly. Lyra, stop! The female agent's voice carried through the forest. You're only making this harder on yourself. They burst into a clearing, a mountain meadow with wildflowers and morning mist. Beautiful, peaceful, and nowhere to hide. The drones surrounded them. The agents emerged from the tree line, all 4 of them now. The original 2+ reinforcements. Ethan and Lyra stood back to back, breathing hard, exhausted, out of options. It's over, the lead male agent said. He looked tired as an alien could look. You've led us on quite a chase, Lyra. But it ends now. No, Lyra said. Just that. Simple. Absolute. You have no choice. There's always a choice. I've learned that from humans. You always have a choice. To what end? You cannot fight us. You cannot outrun us. In 5 minutes, we'll have you sedated and on a ship. In 5 hours, you'll be reconditioned. You'll forget all of this. The agent's voice softened slightly. Is that really worse than capture? You won't remember the pain. The running. Him. Lyra flinched. Ethan found his voice. You want to erase her memories? Her understanding of literature? Art? Emotion? His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. She's spent 2 years learning what it means to be human. She's felt things your species apparently can't feel. And you want to destroy that. We want to restore her, the female agent said. This isn't who she is. This emotional, irrational creature, it's a contamination. It's growth, Ethan shouted. It's evolution. She didn't lose herself, she found herself. You're human. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Ethan stepped forward, and Lyra grabbed his arm. He shook her off. Explain how erasing someone's experiences makes them whole. Explain how destroying connections makes you advanced. Explain how a species that can cross galaxies hasn't figured out that feeling things isn't weakness. It's the entire point. The agents stared. Your species, Ethan continued, his voice breaking now, has been studying us for how long? Millennia? And you still don't get it. Humans aren't interesting because we're logical. We're interesting because we're not. Because we love things that will die. Because we hope when there's no reason to hope. Because we create beauty in the middle of chaos. He looked at Lyra. Because we choose each other over safety. Every single time. Silence. Wind through grass. A hawk calling somewhere above. Then a new voice. He's right. The oldest agent, the one who'd been silent, stepped forward. She was ancient, skin nearly white blue, eyes like molten gold. Ethan recognized her from the library, but she'd stayed back, observing. Elder Sovun, the lead agent said, uncertain now. The human is correct, the elder said. We've been studying this species for 40 Earth years. I've watched them create art from suffering, build communities from chaos, love across impossible divides. She moved closer to Lyra and Ethan. We came to understand them, but we've been doing it wrong. Understanding doesn't come from observation. It comes from participation, from feeling. Elder, the protocol. The protocol is flawed. Her voice carried absolute authority. Lyra hasn't been contaminated. She's evolved. She's become something we should aspire to be, a bridge between species. A being who understands both logic and emotion. You're suggesting we abandon centuries of research methodology because one researcher formed an attachment. I'm suggesting we learn from her. The elder looked at Lyra with something like pride. You spent 2 years reading their stories. What did you learn? Lyra's voice was quiet. That connection is worth more than safety. That love is illogical, and that's what makes it valuable. That the most important truths can't be measured or quantified or studied. They can only be lived. The elder smiled. There. That is what 40 years of observation never taught me. And you want to erase it. The agents exchanged uncertain glances. Let them go, the elder said. We can't. You can. And you will. She moved beside Ethan and Lyra. The haven is 6 miles north. There's a community there that will welcome you. Go. Before I change my mind. Elder Sovun, if command learns. I am command in this sector. The old alien's voice went cold. And I am ordering you to stand down. Is that clear? The agents hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. Go, the elder said to Lyra. Live the story you've chosen. And maybe someday we'll learn to do the same. Lyra grabbed Ethan's hand. They ran. The haven appeared like magic, hidden in a valley that shouldn't exist according to maps. One moment they were stumbling through forest, exhausted and afraid. The next, the trees opened onto a small town that looked like Asheville's artsy cousin, had a baby with an alien settlement. Cabins with architectural styles that hurt to look at. Gardens growing plants that definitely weren't native to Earth. And people, humans and aliens, mixed together, working in gardens, hanging laundry, living normal, impossible lives. A woman approached, human middle-aged, wearing overalls and a warm smile. You two look like you've had a journey. I'm Sarah. Welcome to the haven. Ethan couldn't speak. 3 days of running, fighting, terror, and now safety. Actual, real safety. Lyra started, but her voice broke. We're being hunted. Retrieval team. They could still. They won't. Sarah's smile widened. You crossed into Haven territory. We have agreements. Shielding. Any alien enforcement team that enters without permission gets a very polite, but firm conversation about sovereignty. She gestured toward the town. Come on. Let's get you fed, medical attention for that leg, and somewhere to sleep for a week. The Haven was impossible. Aliens and humans living together. Some couples, some friends, some just tired souls who wanted somewhere they belonged. A Torvin, four-armed, perpetually smiling, ran a bakery that served both earth pastries and crystalline things that hummed when you ate them. A Mexery engineer had a garage full of vintage cars in various states of restoration. Children, human and alien and hybrid, played in the streets without fear. That night, in a small cabin with a fireplace and the softest bed Ethan had ever felt, he and Lyra finally stopped running. We made it, she whispered, curled against him. We actually made it. Yeah. He kissed her hair, silver white and still smelling like river water and pine. What now? Now. She looked up, golden eyes bright in the firelight. Now we live. We build a life. You can start a library here. Sarah mentioned they've been wanting one. I can continue research, but honestly, no protocols. Just learning for the joy of learning. Sounds perfect. Ethan? She traced patterns on his chest with her 6 fingers. Thank you. For running. For believing me. For choosing me when the logical choice was staying safe. Logic's overrated. I read that in a book once. She laughed. Which book? Can't remember. Some love story. He kissed her properly, though I think I prefer living them to reading them. Even the ones with aliens and memory erasure and mountain chases? Especially those. They made love that night, gentle and awkward and perfect. Lyra's cool skin against his warmth. 6 fingers tangled with 5. 2 broken people from different worlds finding wholeness in each other. Later, as she slept against his shoulder, Ethan stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything. 10 days ago, he'd been hiding in a library, terrified of the world. Now he was in an alien commune, in love with a researcher who'd learned humanity through books, planning a future that would have seemed insane a week ago. It was the best decision he'd ever made. The Haven Library opened on a Tuesday. Of course it did. Tuesdays were important now. The day Ethan and Lyra had met, the day everything changed. The building was small but perfect, a blend of human and alien architecture that somehow worked. Bookshelves made of earth, wood, and materials Ethan couldn't name. Windows that filtered sunlight through crystals. A reading area with chairs comfortable for multiple body types. And books. So many books. Human literature mixed with texts from a dozen alien species. Philosophy, science, history, and an entire section devoted to romance novels, because Lyra insisted. You okay? Lyra appeared beside him, carrying a box of new acquisitions. She wore jeans and a sweater that covered her blue skin, mostly habit now, though in the Haven, hiding wasn't necessary. Her silver hair was loose, her golden eyes bright. Yeah, Ethan smiled. Just thinking. A year ago, I was hiding in Asheville, terrified of everything. Now I'm running a library in an alien commune. Life's weird. Good weird. Best weird. He kissed her. Still cool. Still perfect. Ready for opening day? Terrified. What if nobody comes? They'll come. Everyone loves books. They came. Humans seeking familiar stories in a strange place. Aliens curious about human literature. Children of both species looking for adventure. By afternoon, every reading chair was full. Marcus showed up, Ethan's old co-worker from Asheville. He'd found them 2 months ago, needing his own escape from a normal life that didn't fit anymore. Dude, he said, looking around. You opened a library for aliens. And humans. Equal opportunity reading. This is insane. Yeah. Ethan watched Lyra helping a Torvin child select a picture book. But insane in the best way. That evening, after the last patron left, Ethan and Lyra sat in their favorite reading chairs, the ones by the window, where afternoon light turned everything gold. Think we'll ever go back? Lyra asked. To Asheville? To normal? Maybe. Someday. Ethan took her 6-fingered hand. But right now, I'm exactly where I want to be. With you. With books. With home. Home, Lyra repeated, testing the word. My people don't have a concept of home. Just places we observe. And now I understand it. Home isn't a place. It's wherever someone sees you, all of you, even the broken parts, and stays anyway. She squeezed his hand. You're my home, Ethan Cross. And you're mine, Lyra Solon. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the Haven. Outside, the impossible town settled into evening. Inside, 2 people who shouldn't have met. A librarian who'd hidden from the world and an alien who'd learned to love through books. Held each other and read. Some Tuesdays changed everything. This one had changed 2 worlds.